Hello, in this video you will learn what is the NHL and its history. The National Hockey League (NHL) is a professionalized hockey league in North America comprising 32 teams at 25 in the United States and 7 in Canada. The Stanley Cup, the oldest professional sports trophy in North America, is awarded annually to the league playoff champion at the end of each season. The NHL is one of the major professional sports leagues in the United States and Canada and is considered to be the top-ranked professionalized hockey league in the world, with players from 17 countries as of the 2023-24 season. The International Ice Hockey Federation (IIHF) also views the Stanley Cup as one of the most important championships available to the sport. The NHL is headquartered in Midtown Manhattan. The National Hockey League was organized at the Windsor Hotel in Montreal on November 26, 1917, after the suspension of operations of its predecessor organization, the National Hockey Association (NHL), which had been founded in 1909 at Renfrew, Ontario. The NHL immediately took the NHA's place as one of the leagues that contested for the Stanley Cup in an annual interleague competition before a series of league mergers and foldings left the NHL as the only league left competing for the Stanley Cup in 1926. At its inception, the NHL had 4 teams, all in Canada, thus the adjective national in the league's name. The league expanded to the United States in 1924, when the Boston Bruins joined, and has since consisted of both American and Canadian teams. From 1942 to 1967, the league had only 6 teams, collectively if not contemporaneously nicknamed the Original Six. The NHL added 6 new teams to double its size at the 1967 NHL expansion. The league then increased to 18 teams by 1974 and 21 teams in 1979. Between 1991 and 2000, the NHL further expanded to 30 teams. It added its 31st and 32nd teams in 2017 and 2021, respectively. The NHL is the 5th highest grossing professional sport league in the world by revenue, after the National Football League (NFL), Major League Baseball (MLB), the National Basketball Association (NBA), and the English Premier League (EPL). The league's headquarters have been in Manhattan since 1989, when the head office moved from Montreal. There have been 4 league-wide work stoppages in NHL history, all occurring after 1992. The NHL's regular season is typically held from October to April, with each team playing 82 games. Following the conclusion of the regular season, 16 teams advance to the Stanley Cup playoffs, a 4-round tournament that runs into June to determine the league champion. Since the league's founding in 1917, the Montreal Canadiens have won the most combined NHL titles with 25, winning 3 NHL championship series before the league took full exclusivity of the Stanley Cup in 1926, and 22 Stanley Cups afterwards. The reigning league champions are the Vegas Golden Knights, who defeated the Florida Panthers in the 2023 Stanley Cup Finals. History. Early years. The National Hockey League was established in 1917 as the successor to the National Hockey Association (NHA). Founded in 1909, the NHA began play in 1910 with 7 teams in Ontario and Quebec, and was one of the first major leagues in professional ice hockey. However, by its 8th season, a series of disputes with Toronto Blue Shirts owner Eddie Livingstone led team owners of the Montreal Canadiens, the Montreal Wanderers, the Ottawa Senators, and the Quebec Bulldogs to hold a meeting to discuss the league's future. Realizing the NHA constitution left them unable to force Livingstone out, the 4 teams voted instead to suspend the NHA, and, on November 26, 1917, formed the National Hockey League. Frank Calder was chosen as the NHL's first president, serving until his death in 1943. The Bulldogs were unable to play in the NHL, and the remaining owners founded the Toronto Arenas to compete with the Canadiens, Wanderers, and Senators. The first games were played on December 19, 1917. The Montreal Arena burned down in January 1918, causing the Wanderers to cease operations, and the NHL continued on as a 3-team league until the Bulldogs returned in 1919. The NHL replaced the NHA as one of the leagues that competed for the Stanley Cup, an interleague competition at the time. Toronto won the first NHL title, and then defeated the Vancouver Millionaires of the Pacific Coast Hockey Association (PCHA) for the 1918 Stanley Cup. The Canadiens won the league title in 1919, but the series in the Stanley Cup Finals against the PCHA Seattle Metropolitans was abandoned due to the Spanish flu epidemic. In 1924, Montreal won their first Stanley Cup as a member of the NHL. The Hamilton Tigers won the regular season title in 1924-25, but refused to play in the championship series unless they were given a $200 bonus. The league refused and declared the Canadiens the league champion after they defeated the Toronto St. Patrick's, formerly the Arenas, in the semi-final. Montreal was then defeated by the Victoria Cougars of the Western Canada Hockey League (WCHL) in 1925. It was the last time a non-NHL team won the trophy, as the Stanley Cup became the de facto NHL championship in 1926, after the WCHL ceased operation. The National Hockey League embarked on a rapid expansion in the 1920s, adding the Montreal Maroons and the Boston Bruins in 1924, the latter being the first American team to join the league. The New York Americans began play in 1925 after purchasing the assets of the Hamilton Tigers, and they were joined by the Pittsburgh Pirates. The New York Rangers were added in 1926, and the Chicago Blackhawks and Detroit Cougars, later the Red Wings, were added after the league purchased the assets of the defunct WCHL. The group purchased the Toronto St. Patricks in 1927 and immediately renamed them the Toronto Maple Leafs. In 1926, Native American Taffy Abel became the first non-white player in the NHL and broke the league's color barrier by playing for the New York Rangers. In 1934, the first NHL All-Star Game was held, to benefit Ace Bailey, whose career ended on a vicious hit by Eddie Short. The second was held in 1937, in support of Howie Morenza's family when he died of a coronary embolism after breaking his leg during a game. Labor issues. There have been 4 league-wide work stoppages in NHL history, all occurring after 1992. The first was a strike by the National Hockey League Players Association in April 1992, which lasted for 10 days but was settled quickly with all affected games rescheduled. A lockout at the start of the 1994-95 season forced the league to reduce the schedule from 84 games to 48, with the teams playing only intra-conference games during the reduced season. The resulting collective bargaining agreement (CBA) was set for renegotiation in 1998, and extended to September 15, 2004. With no new agreement in hand when the contract expired, League Commissioner Garrett Bettman announced the lockout of the Players Union and closed the league's head office for the 2004-05 season. The league vowed to install what it dubbed cost certainty for its teams, but the Players Association countered that the move was little more than a euphemism for a salary cap, which the union initially said it would not accept. The lockout shut down the league for 310 days, making it the longest in sports history, as the NHL became the first professional sports league to lose an entire season. 60. A new collective bargaining agreement was eventually ratified in July 2005, including a salary cap. The agreement had a term of 6 years with an option of extending the collective bargaining agreement for an additional year at the end of the term, allowing the league to resume as of the 2005-06 season. On October 5, 2005, the first post-lockout season took to the ice with all 30 teams. The NHL received record attendance in the 2005-06 season, with an average of 16,955 per game. However, its television audience was slower to rebound due to American cable broadcaster ESPN's decision to drop its NHL coverage. The league's post-lockout agreement with NBC gave the league a share of revenue from each game's advertising sales, rather than the usual lump sum paid up front for game rights. The league's annual revenues were estimated at $2.27 billion. On September 16, 2012, the labor pact expired, and the league again locked out the players. The owners proposed reducing the players' share of hockey-related revenues from 57% to 47%. All games were cancelled up to January 14, 2013, along with the 2013 NHL Winter Classic and the 2013 NHL All-Star Weekend. On January 6, the tentative agreement was reached on a 10-year deal. On January 12, the league and the Players Association signed a memorandum of understanding on the new deal, allowing teams to begin their training camps the next day. with a shortened 48-game season schedule that began on January 19. Player safety issues. Player safety has become a major issue in the NHL, with concussions resulting from a hard hit to the head being the primary concern. Recent studies have shown how the consequences of concussions can last beyond player retirement. This has significant effects on the league, as elite players have suffered from the aftereffects of concussions, such as Sidney Crosby being sidelined for approximately 10.5 months, which adversely affects the league's marketability. In December 2009, Is Nhl was hired to replace Colin Campbell, and was given a role of Senior Vice President of Player Safety. Shanahan began to hand out suspensions on high-profile perpetrators responsible for dangerous hits, such as Raffi Torres receiving 25 games for his hit on Marian Hossa. To aid with removing high-speed collisions on icing, which had led to several potential career-ending injuries, such as to Hurricanes defenseman Joni Pitkanen, the league mandated hybrid no-touch icing for the 2013-14 NHL season. On November 25, 2013, 10 former NHL players Garrett Lehman, Rick Vaive, Brad Aitken, Darren Banks, Kern Bennett, Richie Dunn, Warren Holmes, Bob Mano, Blair Stewart, and Morris Titanic sued the league for negligence in protecting players from concussions. The suit came 3 months after the National Football League agreed to pay former players $765 million due to a player safety lawsuit. Teams NHL from the 2017-18 season to the 2019-20 season. The NHL consisted of 31 teams, 24 based in the United States and 7 in Canada. The NHL divided the 31 teams into 2 conferences, the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. Each conference was split into 2 divisions. The Eastern Conference contained 16 teams, 8 per division, while the Western Conference had 15 teams, 7 in the Central and 8 in the Pacific. The league temporarily realigned for the 2020-21 season but returned to the previous alignment the following year. With the addition of the Seattle Kraken in 2021-22 to the Pacific Division and the Arizona Coyotes moved from the Pacific to the Central, all 4 divisions now have 8 teams each and both conferences have 16 teams. The number of NHL teams held constant at 30 teams from the 2000-01 season, when the Minnesota Wild and the Columbus Blue Jackets joined the league as expansion teams, until 2017. That expansion capped a period in the 1990s of rapid expansion and relocation, when the NHL added 9 teams to grow from 21 to 30 teams, and relocated 4 teams mostly from smaller, northern cities to larger, more southern metropolitan areas: Minneapolis to Dallas, Quebec City to Denver, Winnipeg to Phoenix, and Hartford to Raleigh. The league has not contracted any teams since the Cleveland Barons were merged into the Minnesota North Stars in 1978. The league expanded for the first time in 17 years to 31 teams with the addition of the Vegas Golden Knights in 2017, then to 32 with the addition of the Seattle Kraken in 2021.